the ocean. It could even be driftwood or a whale. The target is in sight. It's a large wooden ship, and I don't see a sail. Well, never mind, then. That was fast. It appears to be the 40-cannon warship detailed in the document, and it's drifting without a mast. Crew members announced more details as they approached it. The ship was drifting. Not sailing, but not taking a nap either. It was still moving due to the ocean current and wind. It was, indeed, the ship they were looking for. Now that I think about it, there can't be many ships sailing the open seas alone in this era of civilization. The only other thing— never mind. That has nothing to do with me. Let's get started. Jump. Mitsuha grabbed everyone on the 8th floor and jumped. She took them to a deserted island in the other world and returned to the intelligence agency building alone. Jump. Next she jumped everyone on the 7th floor to the island and returned by herself. Jump. She repeated the process with the 6th, 5th, 4th floor, and all the way down to the 3rd level basement. There was a decent amount of people in the building despite the late hour. Why would I go through the trouble of jumping them one floor at a time, you ask? 'Cause if I jumped them all at once, the people from the higher floors would fall to their deaths. I'm not evil. Finally, Mitsuha jumped the entire empty building to Yamano County. She'd already dug a hole in the ground large enough for the building, including the 3 basement levels, to fit perfectly. Actually, the 1st floor entrance ended up pretty high above the ground because she got the depth slightly wrong, but that hardly mattered. She wasn't going to leave it there forever, and definitely had no intention of living in it. There was no concrete pile to support the building. No water or electricity either, which meant it was dark inside, the bathrooms weren't usable, and the elevators wouldn't move. The thing was essentially useless. Then why did I bring the building here, you're wondering? 'Cause of what's inside. It's full of classified documents, computer drives, and servers full of data. Maybe even a hidden safe in the basement, too. I'm gonna take all of it and sell the computers, servers, and documents to a certain country. I'll keep the safe full of treasures for myself, obviously. The engines roared, but the cars didn't move an inch. How could they? The cars had no tires. Not a single one. Just as the cars took off, Mitsuha jumped all the tires to the yard of her county residence. The cars dropped about a foot to the ground, but the drivers stepped on the gas anyway, causing the engines to rev in vain. No more than a few seconds later. "Oh hey, it's Mitsuha," Sabine exclaimed. "Mitsuha," Colette cried. She used successive jumps to bring Sabine and Colette to safety. There was nothing to fear as long as they were in her field of vision and in no immediate danger. If the criminals had been deranged and violent, she would have saved them right away. But she saw that the kidnappers weren't the emotionally unstable type, which gave her the leeway to wait for the right moment. She probably would have flown into a rage if the girls had been in serious danger. The thing I was most afraid of was the criminals getting away and taking the girls completely out of my sight before I could reach them. The broken porcelain is the only reason that didn't happen. I can get the criminals to pay for that instead of me, right? Mitsuha pulled her phone out of her pocket and dialed a number. The leaders of this country told her to call it immediately if she ran into any trouble. I'll bet scary-looking men in black suits are gonna rush to the scene, she thought. Her prediction turned out to be correct, but she wasn't expecting 4 cars full of them to arrive in under 3 minutes. That barely gave her any time to talk to the employee and the other customers who rushed out of the cafe. Mitsuha found out from one of the men that they had a station in this town, and that they took turns staking out the Wolffang base from their cars. They knew Mitsuha, and the girls frequently visited the town, so the station was always ready for an emergency dispatch to help her. Due to the urgency of the incident, they woke up all the men who were napping and sent out every crew. I appreciate it. The reason the kidnappers didn't abandon their cars and flee was because Mitsuha did more than jump away the tires, she also removed a few parts inside the doors. The handles were now incapable of unlatching. She also jumped out the parts needed to open the windows, as well as all the communication devices, guns, knives, and other dangerous items. That included poison likely meant to be used for suicide. The kidnappers probably hadn't noticed that yet, though. The criminals looked dazed and didn't resist while the men in black restrained them. They must have realized that their weapons had all disappeared. I wonder if they look so out of it because they tried to drink their poison bottles only to find them empty. Attempting suicide as a last resort only to fail would leave anyone in a state of shock. Oh, I reattached the door parts just before the men in black opened the car door. I only needed 1 millisecond to jump everything away. If anyone saw, they probably just thought their eyes went blurry for a moment. Almost forgot. I need to jump the weapons back into the car. I don't want their sentence getting lightened because there was no evidence they were armed. The men in black left after Mitsuha and the employee who witnessed the scene gave their testimonies. The kidnappers were seized and escorted away in the 4 cars. They were probably going to be taken to the National Intelligence Agency's underground interrogation room or something. Mitsuha tried to get the men in black to pay for the broken figurine, but to her chagrin, they said it was outside of their responsibility and fled. She relented and tried to pay for it herself, but the store manager didn't let her. It was a cheap store-bought figurine. The thing would have been honored to be broken in order to stop 2 girls from being kidnapped, the manager assured. Now that I think about it, it would have been weird to make the victims of a failed kidnapping pay reparations. The cafe's reputation would take a major hit if word of that spread. Thinking is still not my strong suit. Regardless, I need to return to the cafe, pay for the desserts we ate, and apologize to the other customers. We caused a big commotion, and a lot of the customers are gonna go back inside to melted ice cream. Actually, that's their fault. There's no way anyone would expect me to pay for their ice cream, right? So, what happened, exactly? Once Mitsuha made sure Sabine and Colette weren't injured or emotionally scarred, she jumped them to a place where they could talk quietly, the Yamano County residence. She poured them tea, set out rice crackers, and asked them to recount the incident. Sabine started. I used the bathroom, got out of the stall, washed my hands, and waited for Colette. Then when Colette left her stall, the group of women walked into the bathroom. Makes sense. It would have been outrageous if they sent men into the women's bathroom. Not that being female makes kidnapping someone in the women's bathroom any less of an issue. She went on. The women pinned our arms behind our backs, stuffed our mouths with some sort of fabric, carried us under their arms so that the employee at the register wouldn't see us, and went straight for the entrance. Hold on. Mitsuha interrupted. Sabine's account just revealed a very important piece of information. Mitsuha quickly grabbed Colette's right wrist. She was holding a rice cracker. Go wash your hands. Colette still hasn't washed her hands after using the bathroom. That's not okay. They took a short break as Colette went to wash her hands. Once she returned, Sabine continued the story. I wanted someone in the cafe to realize what was happening, so I didn't resist until we reached the entrance area. Then I flailed and kicked a figurine next to me as hard as I could. Oh, I knew it. But I expected it to be Colette who kicked the figurine, not Sabine. Colette added, I scratched their faces and headbutted them as hard as I could. They clearly looked like they were in pain, but they didn't utter a sound. It had to have hurt. They were really tough. It's probably a part of their job to put up with all that. Their country's dignity and their own lives depended on the mission's success. I guess I know the rest already, Mitsuha thought. I'm so relieved. Thank goodness they weren't hurt and that they have no signs of PTSD. I'm glad I got to them before the kidnappers escaped. But Sabine and Colette being unhurt in the end doesn't undo what just happened. Kidnapping someone for financial gain is a serious crime, even if the attempt fails. I'll teach them what it means to pick a fight with Viscountess Yamano. Witness the wrath of the Yamano family. Anyway, they challenged me to a fight, and I've decided to accept it. I'm counting on your support, Mitsuha declared. I don't know how to respond to that. The captain looked baffled. Mitsuha ignored him and barreled on with her demands. First, I want to ask the leaders of this country for a meeting with the kidnappers. Whatever country that sent those crooks are going to regret it. And I want your help with that. Slow down, lil lady. Sheesh. But this whole incident is partially our responsibility, too. Guess I've got no choice. Huh? What does he mean by that? How are you responsible for what happened? The captain scratched his head. I realized why the Lil Munchkins were kidnapped as I was listening to your story. Or rather, I realized the method the kidnappers used. It's basic stuff. This happened 'cause y'all fell into a pattern. Fell into a pattern? What does that mean? It means that you guys have been doing the same thing every time. You always come here first to respond to your emails, which lets all your recipients know that the princess is in town. And anyone would soon realize after tiling you a few times that you always go to the same cafe, eat and drink so much you wreck your stomachs, and take turns going to the ladies' room. It's easy to figure out the best moment to attack a person if they're always following the same pattern. Ah. Damn it. I'm so stupid. It's bodyguard 101 to not let the person you're protecting follow a fixed schedule. I got careless because I didn't think anyone would attack us after all my threats and warnings. My mistake could have easily gotten Sabine and Colette killed. Arg. Why didn't I give them personal safety alarms or GPS trackers? I need to get some right away. You're an amateur, after all. We should have made sure to teach you all that. Sorry, this was our failure, the captain said. He's being kind, but this was clearly my fault. Crap. Mitsuha picked up her phone to make a call. Hi, I'm Nanaha. Mitsuha introduced herself with her fake name. The handcuffed woman in the cell didn't say anything. She was one of the kidnappers. She and the rest were all imprisoned separately to prevent them from getting their stories straight. It also enabled the interrogation tactic of telling each one that the others had already confessed. This wasn't a prison, by the way. It was a bit of a darker place. What country are you from? Mitsuha asked in English. Any spy was likely to have mastered English and the language of the country they were infiltrating. The old me would have had no chance of becoming a spy. Not that I had any desire to be one. But now, I'm a super agent who can speak any language fluently, appear and disappear at a moment's notice, and steal anything I want. I'm still not gonna be a spy though. The woman didn't respond, but Mitsuha had already gotten what she needed. Before she left the cell, Mitsuha said, I hope you can find it in yourself to repent for your crimes, find a husband, and live happily ever after. WH? The woman froze, wide-eyed. Mitsuha spoke in the dialect of the woman's hometown, which she acquired just now. The languages the woman knew and her natural dialect all but confirmed what country she was from. But just to be safe, Mitsuha intended to speak to the rest of the kidnappers. I don't need to question her about anything specific. I just want to know what country they're from. So I know who to unleash my counterattack upon. Captain, I figured out what country they're from. Can you get some information for me? I want to know the locations of their intelligence agency's headquarters, the homes and villas of the leaders of the intelligence agency and the government, and more. Are you out of your mind? Only the intelligence agencies of major powers and rival countries would know that kinda info. Good. Then you know who to ask. What? The captain stared at her blankly. Mitsuha began to explain. I know there's no way an ordinary mercenary group from another country could figure all that out. So ask someone who would know, but don't introduce yourself as mercenaries. Call yourselves the representatives of Princess Nanaha, a visitor from another world. I think they'll tell you. You can contact someone from the world-to-world meeting participant list. Let's see. You can tell them that for each good piece of information they share, you'll donate samples of seaweed and marine life that aren't in Earth's encyclopedias. The captain looked stunned. Are you an evil genius or are you just stupid? That's rude, Captain. What? The operation failed? The man exclaimed after hearing his subordinate's account. Was the analysis unit's conclusion wrong? Can those girls actually wield magic that could kill in an instant? The team was confident the princess was bluffing to prevent anyone from harming them, suggesting her willingness to do anything to protect them. That's why I authorized this operation in the first place. But I suppose there's nothing to worry about. Even if those children can use magic and our agents get killed, the princess won't get a confession out of them. Whether their lives end in murder or suicide. They know what it would mean for their friends and family back home if they betray our country. Now, tell me exactly what happened. The man in charge of the operation was receiving a report of its failure from his subordinate. The source was trustworthy. The witnesses were fellow agents stationed in other cars in the parking lot who were posing as ordinary customers. There was no evidence that the two girls used this so-called instant death magic, That could mean the analysis unit was right about that after all. So the girls were rescued inexplicably just as the car tires vanished and the agents were trapped inside the vehicles. Then the agents were taken away before getting a chance to finish themselves off. Some agents would have committed suicide in that situation, but it wasn't strictly necessary. As long as they didn't talk, it was acceptable for them to buy time and wait for a chance to escape. They could choose suicide later if it became clear that escape was impossible or if they felt they couldn't withstand the torture any longer. There were plenty of ways for them to kill themselves. Even if their poison had been confiscated, they could bite their tongue, smash their head against a wall, or use a fragment of something to cut an artery open. Well, we can live with one failed operation. There is no evidence to implicate our involvement, and even if the captured agents confess, we'll insist they made everything up and that another country is trying to frame us. We're sure to succeed next time. We will capture that princess and obtain wealth from the other world. If we could just get her to transport one of our mid-class military troops over there, no one would be able to stop us. We could even exchange our out-of-date weapons that are tucked away in storage for their gold and jewels. What's that? She said that teleporting between worlds costs her life force. Why should we care? That's the price she'll have to pay for removing us from the negotiating table. Get to work on the next plan, now. The subordinates hurried out of the room. So this is the intelligence agency building. It was late at night. Mitsu had jumped in front of an 8-story building that was being used as the headquarters of a certain country's espionage agency, although they used the word intelligence because it sounded better. Mitsuha had never been here before, but she was able to jump by using pictures, satellite images, and geographic coordinates that were provided by an ally country. A convenient method like this could only be utilized on Earth. In the New World, she was only able to jump to new locations she saw during the aerial reconnaissance. But it was still only on a small part of a massive continent. They only flew over a few countries. It was a mistake not to have them fly over the old world a little too. Why didn't I think of that? I should arrange another reconnaissance flight, in both the old world and the new world. Now that I've been to the new world, I can jump the aircraft straight there and spend the whole fuel tank flying over land. Whoops, this isn't the time to think about that. I need to get to work. Despite the late hour, the lights in most of the building's windows were on. Are they a 24-hour operation? Or are they just working overtime? Never mind. That has nothing to do with me. Let's get started. Jump. Mitsuha grabbed everyone on the 8th floor and jumped. She took them to a deserted island in the other world and returned to the intelligence agency building alone. Jump. Next she jumped everyone on the 7th floor to the island and returned by herself. Jump. She repeated the process with the 6th, 5th, 4th floor, and all the way down to the 3rd level basement. There was a decent amount of people in the building despite the late hour. Why would I go through the trouble of jumping them one floor at a time, you ask? 'Cause if I jumped them all at once, the people from the higher floors would fall to their deaths. I'm not evil. Finally, Mitsu had jumped the entire empty building to Yamano County. She'd already dug a hole in the ground large enough for the building, including the 3 basement levels, to fit perfectly. Actually, the first floor entrance ended up pretty high above the ground because she got the depth slightly wrong, but that hardly mattered. She wasn't going to leave it there forever, and definitely had no intention of living in it. There was no concrete pile to support the building. No water or electricity